welcome back to my channel. I'm Michael Johnson, and today we're going to be discussing Euphoria Season 2, Episode 4. So, a lot has happened. I feel a lot happened in this episode. So, there's a lot to break down in this episode. So let's get right into it. So let's first just break down the main points of this episode, Season 2, Episode 4 of Euphoria. Basically, this episode really focused on the relationship between Maddie and Cassie. And, Cassie feeling guilty for, sleeping with Nate. And just the guilt throughout the episode, the guilt is building up, and especially she feels really guilty because it's Maddie's birthday. So she feels guilty, I'm gonna say AF, as AF, she, feels guilty AF. So, we see, I'm just jumping to Cassie's character, and we see the relationship between Cassie and Maddie this episode, because when we see Cassie give her birthday present to Maddie's birthday present, it's a picture or one of those books. Can't think of the name for some reason, but it's just a book with pictures with them as their friendship throughout the years, a collage of pictures of their friendship throughout the years. So that's her birthday gift to Maddie, and when we see her hug Maddie as she's giving her this gift, she looks sad and guilty, like AF. Like, there's no way to put it. She feels guilty. She feels beyond guilty at this point, and we jump to her seeing her have a conversation with Nate, and she feels awful, and especially she's angry at Nate for thinking that he's trying to get back together with Maddie, because they didn't meet in the last episode. He went to give flowers to Maddie and go over to her job when Maddie was babysitting the kid Theo. However, he didn't, at the end, Maddie and Nate didn't end up getting back together, but in Cassie's head, she thought Nate was getting back together with Maddie, and she felt ashamed that they kept on seeing each other and hooking up behind Maddie's back, because she thought they were getting back together. So it's a whole mess. And one of my favorite part of this was when she was talking to Nate. One of my favorite parts when Cassie was talking to Nate about how guilty and ashamed she felt for hooking up with Nate behind Maddie's back and being a bad friend, is that, when she said the line is, "I might be crazier," which was, and Nate said back, "That's not a good thing." It's I don't care. So she completely, has lost it, and you see it throughout the episode that she completely lost her marbles. That's another way to put it. And she's just, she feels ashamed and guilty that, you see her emotions build up throughout the episode and at the party, at Maddie's birthday party. And she's just, she's drinking and just, not caring what anyone thinks. And then once, Nate comes over, she puts on that provocative bathing suit to try and get Nate's attention when Nate comes over to Maddie's birthday party, and she just is drinking and not caring what anyone thinks. I love Kat's reaction when she saw Cassie walk down in that provocative pink bathing suit. She was like, WTF? It's what are you doing? So it was and Kat was that's an interesting choice of clothing. So, and just Kat's face was everything when she saw Cassie's putting on that bathing suit. It was WTF? Interesting choice. So, and then we see her drinking and just spiraling out of control. And it just keeps on building up, and then when then Maddie's talking to Nate because Cassie mentions when she gets into the hot tub with everyone, with Kat, Nate, and Maddie are in the hot tub. Then Cassie gets in, she's all drunk, and Cassie thinks, he says, "Oh, you guys are getting back together," and Maddie says, "No, we're not," and Nate says no to right away, and Maddie's like, "Why did you say no right away?" And then you can tell that emotions were building up. With Cassie, when the camera was just focusing on her and her emotions were building up, you can see her face, like things were just building up and building up as Maddie was talking and like arguing with me, and it's like, like, I don't believe you, such like an awful guy, and it's like, I don't believe when you say things like, "Oh, I want to go to college, I want you to come to college with me, live with me, marry me, have my babies," and then after that, after Maddie says, "Have my babies," you see throughout the episode, Cassie's emotions are building up, and right after Maddie says, "Have my babies" to Nate, she vomits all over she vomits everywhere on the hot tub. And it's just, you see that she's a complete mess, and it's just what has happened to Cassie. She's a complete wreck. And basically, so she vomits on basically everyone, Maddie, Nate, and Kat, all of them were in the hot tub when Cassie vomited. It was like, dang, that was a disgusting scene, and it was insanely, the timing was so on point, like, they couldn't have timed it any better, and that was just so on point. And I love when I watched the Euphoria cast talk about the episode and how they, and behind the scenes of the episode, and Sydney Sweeney talks about, for that vomit scene, she had to have like a tube into her mouth and filled with fake vomit, and then she had to like press against the tube, and then that's how the fake vomit came out. I was like, wow, so much went into, you wouldn't think so much would go into like creating vomit, but so much had to go into that scene, which was, and they did a good job at making it on point, because after Maddie says, "I want to have my babies," that's when she vomited. So, yeah. So, and then her mom had to pull her out of the hot tub. It was just, and then she was like, her mom was dragging Cassie upstairs, and like, Cassie was like, she was feeling so awful, and she was like, "Oh, I'm such a bad friend, Maddie. I messed everything up." And then as her mom is dragging Cassie upstairs, she's like crying and seeing, she's like completely a wreck, and like she looks at Nate, and Nate is like, he just doesn't know what to do at this point. I think he's just like, both Maddie and Cassie aren't the right girls for him, and he's just making bad decisions after bad decisions, and I think he's just, he's not like fully, himself, is, struggling with his sexuality, and he's just, just keeps on making these bad decisions and just being with people, with these girls that aren't really good for him. So, that was Cassie this episode. I usually do character by character for when I do these reviews, but I think I'm just gonna jump about like the big, main points of the episode. So the next person who was spiraling like Cassie in this episode was Nate's dad. He was really spiraling, after the last episode, after, getting attacked by Astra. I love Astra. He's a ride or die there. So he's still like, his head is so bandaged up from the last episode, and he's drinking and is a complete mess. However, he goes back to memory lane, to the old bar where, young Cal and Derek, where they kiss, and he wanted to, I think, go back to memory lane to feel, just remember the good old days. Because, he's, after that, seeing his backstory in the last episode, he's been struggling with his sexuality, and he just feels. I think he ever since got married and got his girlfriend pregnant at a young age. I think he just assumed he had to be this straight man, this perfect straight man, straight white man in this picture perfect family, and he couldn't really fully be himself. So he decided to keep all that festering inside him, and then also the only way he would let it out is while having affairs with young people in the community, like for example when he hooked up with Jules. Well, he didn't know that he was hooking up with a high schooler, but still, it was completely wrong to do. However, we've seen Cal struggling with his sexuality and just trying to be the picture perfect dad and husband, and just putting on that face, putting on a facade to say to be that perfect guy, the perfect husband, the perfect dad, and he wasn't. And then we really do see throughout Euphoria season 1 and now in season 2 that he's really not. He hasn't been a perfect dad, but he's been struggling with his own problems and issues inside mentally. So in this episode, we really saw that, because when he ran out to basically drunk driving to that bar, he's just really out of control. And then once he gets to the bar, we see him thinking of Derek and putting on the same song that him and Derek dance to, and then he starts to get really drunk and tries to wrestle the guy, because the guy he was dancing with as he was thinking of Derek. And then he got really messy and drunk. Oh, by the way, did you notice that at that scene at that jukebox when he was picking a song, there was a Nicki Minaj Pink Print album in the jukebox. So if you caught that, I think that was probably little Zendaya probably did that. Probably got that Pink Print album. It's we should just put a look at little hint at Nicki Minaj. I know it probably didn't mean anything, but I think Zendaya is a fan of Nicki Minaj, so and since Zendaya is a fan of Nicki Minaj, she probably could have put that there. It's why not a little nod to her one of her favorite artists, favorite female rappers. So anyway, if you caught that, then good eye. Anyway, back to Cal. He starts wrestling and getting really messy and drunk and wrestling and trying to wrestle the people at the bar. Then he gets kicked out, and then he basically drinks and drives back home. I honestly thought when he was drinking and recklessly driving, I thought he was gonna crash and that was gonna be the end of Cal. I thought they were gonna kill off Cal this episode, because he was really driving recklessly. And I think it was a Jeep too. It's that would have been really bad if he crashed, because he would have definitely killed himself. So he didn't. So surprise. And so Cal basically, after when he had that memory lane, going back to that bar experience, and he comes back home and basically expressed his truth that he's been hiding and struggling with his sexuality, and that he's has sex with men, women, transgender, whoever, and he's been having affairs, and and then both Nate and his other son are he's saying his truth, and also telling his sons and wife basically off. He's actually he was peeing on, as he got in the house, he started to pee in the middle of the floor, and as he's saying all this, his dick is just right out. his dick is just right out there in the open as he's expressing his truth, and he doesn't give two F's, you know, and what anyone thinks, obviously, and like his wife's like, put your dick away. It's like, nah, no, and he's just telling, basically expressing his truth and that he's gonna leave the family. He's gonna probably get a divorce between his wife because he's not happy. Obviously, he's never really been happy, and because he really didn't get a chance to live his truth. So I'm happy he opened up and just then basically told everyone, it's like, I know all the secrets that all of you've been hiding, and basically telling everyone's family secret except for, I know one interesting one was like his Nate's brother, when Cal's dad was like, I know what porn you watch. It's like gangbang and then people pissing on each other. It's like, what the WTF? It's like, that's interesting. That's just wild. And then his wife, it's like, I know you've been like writing secret love letters to another guy. So it's like, I don't think she's had an affair like her husband, but so love letters aren't too bad, but like still not fully cheating, but still like thinking about cheating with someone else. And then Nate just calling out Nate for just being really secretive, and Nate is his son, and he doesn't really know much about him. He's keeping a lot secret about himself, so his dad is just, basically called him out for being really secretive and doesn't know what to expect from Nate. So Cal in this episode I was just finally happy, I guess. He opened up, even though not in the best way, being drunk and just getting, wasted. And so, and then taking the family picture and walking out. I was just, at least he opened up at this point. So, I think it was definitely an not emotional, but, definitely a good episode for him, that he finally opened up and just finally started telling his truth. Even though he was drunk and wasted, he still ended up telling his truth. And I think it's good for him that he's gonna leave the family, because the family's just toxic and the family isn't good. It's not, just a toxic, messy family at the end of the day. So that was Cal this episode. So let's get into the last person. I know I said the last main point for this episode was for Euphoria, you have the narrator, of course, Rue. And Rue's been just, secretly doing heroin, fentanyl, whatever drug she could get her hands on, and that from the last episode, from that suitcase that she got from that woman. So she's been doing that, and she's been trying to keep it secret from Jules. And so yeah, she's been trying to keep it a secret from Jules. And this episode, we really see a montage of basically how much she loves Jules. So we see a montage from Titanic, Brokeback Mountain, and a lot of artistic paintings to represent, their love for Jules, which was really interesting. I loved it. I thought the visuals and the paintings and the movie and TV references, a couple references to the classic movies and TV shows was the best. I love the Brokeback Mountain reference, the Titanic reference. It was really beautiful. I love that. Anyway, so we start the episode off with Jules and Rue, and Jules is going down on on Rue, and so Rue is high and doesn't feel anything, but she's pretending that she feels Jules down there. And she basically fakes an orgasm, and it's like, yeah. Jules, like, she thinks Jules is not gonna catch on, yet Jules did catch on, because that's, like, not the sound. The sound Rue made when she faked her orgasm was, like, that's not a sound you would make if you actually did have an orgasm. So she went to, which made Jules go to Elliot and tell him everything that happened, and it's like, she faked it. It's like, and she felt so bad, so it's like, oh, it makes me feel that I'm not doing it right, like, I'm a guy. It's like, oh, Jules. So basically he was like, practice on my hand, and which ended up her practicing on Elliot's hand of her, like, going down on Rue, and then he did the same thing with Jules, and then which made them have things basically heat up, and then they basically ended up making out, which Jules ended up cheating on Rue. Oh, which is awful, but I'm still angry at Rue and at the direction she's going at. It's like, ever since she got and made that, those pills from that drug lady, it's like, that was a horrible decision, because she's not going to be able to pay her back, and she's just using her drugs herself, because she's not selling the drugs. She's just keeping the drugs for herself. So she's not going to be able to pay the woman back, because she's not going to have enough money. And I think it's just really bad that she's so addictive to drugs that she's not really paying attention, that she's losing people. In this episode, we see her lose Jules and Elliot too, and that she's gravitating to losing a lot of people. Eventually, Gia, her mom, and she's already lost Ollie, her, sober coach, and it's like she's drifting apart more and more. And this episode really shows her drifting apart, and also this episode really showed why, a little bit behind the reason why she's been doing drugs, and it really goes deep emotionally with the big impact and why she turns to drugs, and I'll get to that later. So Jules tells Elliot everything about what happened between her and Rue, and she ended up cheating on Rue, and then basically this whole episode we have the threesome. Rue, Jules, and Elliot. They're hanging out, having fun, playing Truth or Dare. And, I love one of the dares was for Rue and Elliot to make out. And then another one was for, they're just doing stupid dares. And it was so funny. And then how when Rue went to the bathroom, they were like, oh, let's go back to making out again. And it's like, I just find it interesting, too, that, like, in the last episode, or an episode earlier this season, she was all upset when she first met Elliot, and Rue forgot to introduce him, and Jules was so jealous and angry that, there was something going on between Rue and Elliot, and then she ended up now cheating on Rue with Elliot. It's like, what the WTF, really? It's just, I can't. I can't with Jules. However, like, it makes sense, like, he's a good looking guy, like, I can't help that she's finding, Elliot attractive and all that, so I just hate it, because I'm shipped Rue and Jules since season 1, and I just don't want anything to come between them, but Rue's making it easy since she's just all about drugs, and her addiction for it's like so strong that she really doesn't care about her relationship at this point with Jules. It's completely falling apart. Because she thought at the beginning of the season that she could, do drugs and have a relationship with Jules. However, it looks like she can't. She can't do both. It's not possible. And this episode really tells that. So, really, so we got the three of them playing Truth or Dare. One of the dares was to go and uh, get liquor, steal liquor from a convenience store, and which they do, but they ended up getting caught and then having to like drive away. So they can't go back to that convenience store for beer again. But it wasn't even beer. It's like White Claw, like all that for like White Claw for a little bit of like alcoholic, sparkling, flavored alcohol. That was like probably like a little bit of alcohol percentage. So yeah. Uh, so while they're writing, Jules is drinking, and Elliot is, paying attention to her because like she's drinking, and he's worried because not only is she drinking, but she's like high on all these, hopped up on all these drugs too. So he's kind of worried for her, and he was like, "You shouldn't be drinking." And then Rich starts her to lash out at Jules, and it's like, why can't you be drinking and asking all these questions? And she lashes out at Jules, and then she basically gets kicked out of the car. However, it was her choice. She didn't want to be in the car anymore, so she leaves, goes back home, and goes back to doing drugs in her house. And Elliot Elliot goes back home, and Jules goes back to his house. She takes a shower, and then they're gonna make out again, but then he ends up telling Jules the truth that Rue is back on drugs, and he's been on drugs with her too, so she's completely devastated finding out the truth, and then Rue is in her own mind. I love watching the after show, kind of when the cast speaks about the episode, because Sam, the director, Sam Levinson, I think that's his name, he talks about how this episode, when we go in Rue's mind, that when she goes deep into drugs, we get to see her mind kind of go to the spiritual world, and it's like caught up between spiritual world and the real world too, so we kind of get to see that. And that's why we got that church scene with the one and only Labyrinth. Honestly, Labyrinth needs to be in. He needs to be in more episodes. Like, honestly, I loved it. I was like, right when I saw him, it was so emotional, that church scene, because that was just so powerful, and it kind of gave us the reason why Rue turns to drugs, is because she misses her dad, and her dad died when she was, it was like his death really impacted her, and I think she felt really, alone, and she felt like the only way she can connect with her dad now that he's dead is by drugs, and because that's when she can like kind of feel like she can see him and feel connected to him. And that was so sad. Definitely seeing her dancing by herself, when she was imagining dancing with her dad in the spiritual realm, as Sam Levinson would describe it. It was just so emotional and heartbreaking. And then, yeah, it was so emotional and heartbreaking. Seeing her, Rue, like, get so sucked into this, and then, it was just an emotional ending to the episode. So, my predictions, what's come next for this episode, for the next episode of Euphoria, I don't know what to expect, is, I'm hoping this is pushing Rue to finally realize, because I think this is pushing her to almost overdose again. So, I think, I saw someone say this, that I think in the next episode Rue's gonna get locked up by that woman, because she hasn't gotten her money yet for the drugs that Rue took. So the woman's gonna lock her up, maybe, and that's why we see a locked door. We don't really see her, so. And then we see Gia crying, and we see Jules, and I don't know, a lot. Anything could happen in the show. It's Euphoria. And I don't know, another thing. I know people thinking after this episode that, like, oh my god, Rue is dead. Rue is not dead. I don't think she's dead. I think she's just coming close to being dead for all the drugs that she has done. And it's close to ODing, but she's not dead. And I think Cassie and Nate's secret's gonna fall. It's gonna come out definitely soon. I think it's gonna be the season finale though. We're gonna have that big reveal. And I think the way the secret's gonna come out is by Lexi's play. Because Lexi's been watching everything unfold. So I think she's been like writing everything down. And I think that's all in her play, Oklahoma. Which is really about her sister and everything that her sister is going through. So I think that Cassie and Nate's secret's gonna be revealed to the whole school. Kind of like Regina in the Mean book, in the Burn book, I mean. And everyone will find out, and Maddie's gonna probably end up, after the show, it's gonna be like, so where's Cassie at? And it's gonna give Cassie a little talking to. So yeah, the secret's gonna come out, and I think it's gonna be the season finale. And I think Lexi will turn out to be the real badass this season. I think Lexi is gonna be the real badass. And Kat needs to break up with Elliot. She's not happy. But I love in this episode we got to see Maddie and Kat talk, and Maddie has become a really good friend this season. I love it. She gave really good advice for Kat, and what you think you want, it might not be what you actually want. So Kat needs to break up with Ethan, because if she's not happy, you shouldn't be, shouldn't suffer to be in an unhappy relationship. Move on. She's young. She needs to move on. If you're not happy, you're not happy. Just move on. At the end of the day, just move on. I think a lot of these characters should be in relationships because they have a lot of issues. They need to work on themselves a lot. I think a big theme for this show is these characters need to work on themselves before being in a relationship, because being in a relationship is just making it much worse, because then they try to think about the other person, but they're not fully thinking of the other person because they have their own internal issues that they're trying to deal with, and it's just everything is just a mess. So I feel like if they need therapy at the end of the day. A lot of them need therapy at the end of the day. If they got therapy, I think things would be so much better, and they wouldn't all be in toxic or awful relationships. So I think a big theme is they all need help. They all need help at the end of the day. So that was Euphoria, season 2, episode 4. I don't know. The show always surprises me. I love it though. This season's definitely darker than last season. I did love last season though. Season 1 will always be, so far, my favorite season. So until Sunday, see you next Sunday.